Hey, everybody, and welcome to Positively Psyched with Rod Loudon. Today's guest is a music producer. He's a musician, and he's the president and founder of Smile Records, whose roster includes bands such as the Knack, the Wintermits, and his own bands, Smash and The Stand. Over his long career in the music industry, he's worked with such artists as Beyonce, Sheila E., Billy Gibbons, and the Babies. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Tony Valenziano.
Well, good afternoon, Rod. How are you, buddy?
I am doing good. How are you today?
Pretty well. I'm waiting for they keep saying rain.
Yeah, me
No,
too, man.
if we
Now,
if we can't have bad fires, we know we can get really bad rain. So
exactly. Well, I love the guitars on the back there. We got what? We got a
oh yeah,
Gibson, some
yeah,
Rickenbacker.
right. I'm a Rick guy. I've always been a
Yeah,
Rick and a
yeah.
Gretsch.
When
I
I
got
first met you, I
the
think it
other
was
side.
at
I'm in
you're
the
jamming
studio
out at.
room, and the
Yeah,
other side's got the Gretches and the Martins and all that. So there's one Strat, but yeah, I'm pretty much a Rickenbacker guy. You?
yeah. Me, I'm a Paul Reed Smith dude.
Yep.
Martin acoustic, I like Strats as well. Yeah, when I first met you, you were playing at you're jamming out at a place called Zen Bistro, and you were on the Rickenbacker.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Right.
believe was it a 12 string with only six
Yeah,
strings?
it is
Yeah.
a 12, but unfortunately for what that kind of group does, because it's all just goof off covers, 12 string, unless you're doing a Birds or an REM kind of vibe, it's
Right.
not really conducive. So I
Right.
just took off the
Opening to
octaves.
Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi.
Right. Okay. But to
Yeah.
play all night with it, and it's one of my favorite sounding guitars, I just took off the octaves on the
Oh,
12.
cool, man. Well, it sounded great. You sounded great.
Thanks.
Um, so let's kind of delve into your long career here. I, in reading about you and your bio, uh, your dad was an influence on you in your early days. You was at Capitol Records and became head of marketing, and he exposed you to one day a band called, as we see up in the behind you, the Beatles.
Yeah, it's a funny story. My father, uh, he had a high school buddy. They went to the army. They got out of the army. They went in 58, so now it's 60. And I was born in 62. So within those first couple of years, he had been driving a produce truck company for my grandfather. And that was his business, was the produce company. And my dad, that was his just job out of the army. And he didn't really know what he wanted to do. And his buddy that was in the army, my Uncle Charlie, um,
Uncle
he
Charlie.
Charlie Nuccio, which is a
Yeah.
very famous name, and I'll tell you later. Uh, he said, "Hey, I'm working out here at all the stations and the stores, and they're trying to push this band like a surf thing, and this is Chicago, St. Louis, Des Moines. I mean, no one surfs out here. I don't get it." But there's another uh, band that it's not even on our label, but it's on the Chicago label called VJ. They're releasing it here soon. We got to help them out and just make sure that they're hitting the right runs and the stories, places, and the right stations and the whatever grease we need to give them to get that record play. Because we kind of own the band, but we're not distributing it. And my dad didn't get that, but he said, "Okay, whatever. I love Elvis. Let's go." He was a country guy mainly, but sure. And that's what had happened. The first record, of course, never went anywhere. But by the time I was born in 62, there was a buzz going around in Europe about them. They were coming to America. By 63, it was in that November or maybe a little October, November, by December, that guy in St. Louis played I Want to Hold Your Hand like 55 times
Right.
in a row, right?
Right.
And it was good because that was my dad's territory too. And they sold I can just tell you that my father was making more money than the president of Capitol at the time just in commission.
Wow.
I mean, that's how many records they sold. Obviously, on that certain band, they restructured the lovely commission way. But but my father was involved with that, and he always brought the records home, and I'm like, I'm 4, 5, 6. These are unbelievable, fun, cool things. I don't equate that he knows them. It's their thing. I just know that they're fun, a fun, cool thing. When you're that young at that point in time, you're already getting influence, but you are not aware. You just know that everyone else is into it too. So this is cool. You got a lot of friends. You have mutual things happening with people. That's how you usually start a band. It's always like a couple guys from school. Oh, I used to love those guys. I'm into this. I really like that. I like punk, whatever it was. And then, how that tightens up and then you become not only regular friends, let's form a band. Well, I don't know how to play anything. And the first time I ever picked up anything, I was 14. But prior to all that, my dad got super lucky with that band, which gave him the goal, and Charlie. And then they'd found Bobby Gentry, Glenn Campbell. My dad was responsible for El Martino, Nancy Wilson. He found Linda Ronstadt out a few times later. Uh,
Wow.
Helen Reddy. I have the gold record, I Am Woman, over here on the
I Am Woman, hear me roar, right?
so he was very much into the female side of things, but he also turned down Fifth Dimension, Captain and Tennille. So it wasn't like, he's like, well, he always blamed it on, well, those weren't the songs they gave me. I heard other songs. I
I
didn't
didn't
hear.
hear Muskrat Love.
It wasn't. It was like not even what you're hearing. And I said, okay, it'd be like you got a Beatle record and they were called Tony, Orlando, and Dawn. They didn't. It just didn't make sense at the
Right.
time. And I said, well, hey, you win some, you lose some, but not bad. And that's how we got to California because he became vice president out in Capitol. That was in 72, 4, 73, 74.
So
So
what? So you're loving rock and roll. You're loving the Beatles. You're loving the sound of guitar. And at 14, how did you get your first guitar, and what was it?
I at this point my parents are divorced, so my father has a new wife, and I end up living with my dad for a little bit, and she had an acoustic stuck in her closet, a
Mm.
nylon, and it had a uh, teach you how to play guitar in 5 easy lesson book, which didn't teach you anything.
Right.
But my buddy had, who knew how to play guitar great, said, here's an old Beatle book. It has like 25 songs and the black dots on on the fret sheet that would show you the chord. So I
Right.
learned that way. And I think I took one bass lesson. Um, and the guy was terrible. And he said, you're not going to learn anything from me. And you don't want to. You just want to go and do your own thing. Because the first thing I said is, I just want to know the bass line to Please Please Me. And he said, this is how it goes. And it was very boring. He wasn't doing anything to excite me. So I was getting turned off by the traditional way. But the guys across the street from me who had a really cool band who even played our high school dances, um,
Wow.
let me pluck his guitar a little bit and do stuff. And when I first heard he had a red, that Trini Lopez Gibson style. Um,
Not sure.
Yeah, it was like not the Barney Kessel version, but anyway, he just handed it to me and I strummed and that sound coming out of his Marshall was like, "What?" And there it was. And so that changed. So I really wanted to be good at it. And I learned how to do that. And I bring a guitar to school or I pick up one in the music room. And then I just noticed tons of people around me, a lot more female than male, but the guys were like, "Oh, I've been trying to learn to play guitar too." But I can see the reception that you get from playing in front of women, at least.
Right.
So
That's why we picked up
it,
guitars.
it was
Then we got to get the
90%. It
chicks.
was really 90% why. I was playing sports as well, but the
Right.
girls really don't come out and watch games much. It's always
Right.
parents, or guys watching your football game or stuff like that. But the girls were definitely coming out to the little parties and the dances that we were doing on the street or in the school. So that's
What was the first guitar you bought?
um so the first guitar I really bought was a black 360 Rick 12. But it was a 72, so it was the not the toaster pickups, and I really wanted that. I needed a real 65, 66 sound because I'm a Vox fanatic as well. And so
Okay.
I had a Cambridge Vox, which was solid state. And then the Super Beetle came out again, which was solid state. And I was like, I really need some tube. And a guy said, "Oh, he has an AC 15." I'm like, "No, I really need an AC 30." He's like, "This AC 15 is going to be worth something." And he wants $500 for it. And I said, "Well,
Which is a
which
lot
is
of
a
money
great, and I
back
still
then.
have it, and it's a great thing. But at the time, I didn't know what 15 meant. I thought it was like, oh, is that the size of the speaker? Is that the model? What is AC? What does that all stand
Yeah.
for? So I didn't know that it was only a 15-watt amp. And the
Right.
30 was a 30 amp, and then the Super Beetle got up to 100, but there's Marshall pounding, 300 watts, whatever it was.
Right.
So I knew the combo of thing, but that was the first guitar I remember. And it was so bad because I slept with it. I got it from Nadine's down on Santa Monica here in Hollywood.
Wow.
Do you know where that is? Nadine's old
I don't think I've
shop.
ever
Anyway,
been there. I didn't grow up in LA, so
oh, okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
it was an old, great classic guitar. But at that time, no one wanted Rickenbackers. They were going for like 250, and it was a
Right.
12 string. I'm like, I can afford that.
Yeah.
$250 was a chunk, but I'll afford this. And yeah, I sounded like George Harrison instantly. I did the riff to "You Can't Do That." The guys in the band were like, "Oh my God, you're good." I'm like, I'm the
What was
bass
the name
player.
of your first band?
We were called the Rickies because
The
we all
Rickies.
played. Yeah,
Rick.
really. Here's how funny it was. We entered a battle of the bands, and
Sure.
if you won, it was $500 in cash, but $5,000 in gear. But
Wow.
unfortunately, it was $5,000 in all Rickenbacker gear, which we thought was cool, and so we changed
Right.
our name right then when we knew that that was to the Rickies.
Is
So,
this like 70 what?
oh, 76,
Okay.
76. So, you
You're like
know,
14.
yeah, I'm 14, 15. We just started.
So, yeah, so obviously
And
you had some natural ear and talent.
well, we did have an 18-year-old in the band,
Oh,
and that dude loves singing. He
and
was,
he could buy you booze.
yeah, he was like Peter Frampton met
Oh,
Robert
wow.
Plant,
Oh
who
my God.
who didn't want to play guitar. He was the
Dude.
guitarist in the band, but he wanted to be the front dude.
Right, right.
So anyway, we end up winning that thing. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Rickenbacker PAs, but they look like the Vox PAs, but they're in reverse. Vox PAs were like pyramid out. These were pyramid
Right.
down. It
Now.
was,
Yeah.
they just kind of ripped each other
Yeah.
off back then. That was the first band. That was a fun band. And a
Right.
buddy of mine, he lived down the street from me. He and I jumped in a car, told the other two guys, we're going to New York. That's what we're going to do. We're going to be in a band. And they're like,
Why New
really?
York?
We thought LA was oversaturated at the time. Now remember, this is like 76, 70. Power pop isn't there. We're doing Beatles kind of thing. So
Right.
no one
And
wanted
there's
that.
that LA punk movement going on there with,
It did, yeah, but
John Doe
didn't,
and the Go-Go's and
but that's coming up. That's
yeah,
about, after 80. But I'm talking right in my high school year, 76 to 80,
right.
those bands that were coming through. And the cool kind of thing was Dwight Twilley was living up in Topanga with Susan Cowsill, and they would come to the corral or they come down. And they had a buddy named Phil Seymour who ended up being our drummer. But Phil was the drummer for the Dwight Twilley band, and they already had a big hit called "I'm on Fire," and he's recording around my high school, the street down my high school, in this little studio, Richie Podler's studio, and it ends up being the Precious to Me single, and so we were very involved with a lot of the scene around, but we noticed that, man, we are small fish in a monster pond. And if this guy was making records already and has a solo career, is on Boardwalk, my dad had also um, formed Boardwalk and uh, Casablanca Records with Neil Bogart. One cool little thing that I didn't mention ever in my bio was, so I mentioned I moved in with my father. Um, he married this lady that was with a monster, big time management company, Ruffalo and Cavallo. I can't remember. Anyway, they had three artists. One was Earth, Wind, and Fire. One
That's
was,
a good one to have.
yeah, no, one was another, a comedian. I can't remember, Richard Pryor, I think it was.
Richard Pryor.
And then they
Yeah, okay.
had this new girl singing. And one of the girls that was working with my stepmother, a girl named Susan Mineo, um, needed a place to live in California until she found one. She lived in our house. She said, "Can my friend, which was the artist, can she
Right.
live with me? Like she'll be in my room because I know you got a room and Tony's got a room. So that we live, just stay in the back room. We just need a place for a little bit. We're looking at places, but it won't be more than a couple of weeks." 6 months later, they moved out, but it was Donna Summer
Whoa.
before she's Donna Summer, right?
Wow. No, but
So
how cool is
right.
that?
So that's my father was involved with that kind of stuff. So that was always around me, but I didn't really notice or take wow, this is really
Right.
a
Just
special
people in the
thing.
house.
In
Yeah.
my high school, it was like, uh, it was crazy. I had a crush on this girl, Angie Gates, and when she finally took me to her house in Hidden Hills, we went through the garage, and then I went through the back and down this hallway, and I'm looking, and there's all these gold records, and I look to my left, and then there's this man in a studio with all these guitars, and he's listening to something, and I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, "Oh, that's my dad." I said, "Oh." Yeah, hang on. Tony, this is my father. David, this is Tony. I'm like, hello. Well, it ends up being David Gates of Bread. Ended up
Wow.
dating the daughter, whose
Yeah.
best friend I was really in love with. And the same story happened again. It was she took me to her house and I walked down the hallway and there's all these gold records. But this time they all said Capitol.
Ah.
I run home. I'm like, Dad, I, I looked on this thing. Remember when Capitol had purple? He's like, yeah, I was like in the 40s and 50s. Right. And then you guys went into the cool little, like the Beetle one with the rainbow around the black. Yeah. And then you had the cool swirl, the yin and yang, orange and it was like cactus cooler looking. He's like, yeah. Well, this lady's got them all up and down her hallway. And I don't even know who she is, but her, Debbie, the girl that I was dating, said, my mom was a singer back then. She was pretty good, but I don't know. And I said, "Do you ever heard of Sarah Vaughan?" And he went, "Hold on." Runs upstairs, comes back downstairs. He's got about 10 albums in his hand. He's like, "Hey, next time you see her, can you have her sign these?"
Get some
So I went to a
autographs.
school, like with Frankie Avalon or Jr., but his
Right.
kids, uh, Herb Alberts and Moss,
What
um,
high school was that?
Calabasas, right here
All right. Yeah, sure.
locally.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was all young and all those guys that were in Hollywood were starting to make their move out west. And Calabasas, believe me, it was a three tumbleweed town. It didn't look like it looks
Sure.
now.
It wasn't the Calabasas of the
No, it's
Kardashians
nothing,
today.
nothing. When I say tumbleweeds, the Sagebrush was a sliver of a bar. Now it owns
Right.
that whole property next to the Adobe.
Right. Next to the museum there.
Yeah, right.
Or
But
the
that was the
hanging
only thing there.
tree. The
And
hanging tree of
the
Calabasas.
car lots were golfing driving ranges, so it was
Wow.
nothing like it is. So
Right,
I grew
sure.
up in a very cool thing that I didn't know was cool because I was just friends with the kids. And then when I met, like the first guy I met was Don Newcomb Jr. I didn't know his dad was Don Newcomb, the baseball Hall of Faming, second, third black guy ever in baseball guy. He was just
Right.
Mr. Newcomb to me, and his
Right.
mom was this gorgeous singer that was at the Cotton Club, and her and Lena Horne, they got out just in time. And so there was all these great things going around, but it wasn't even I was taking it for granted. You're just not aware that that's the life is going on. They've had the lives. We're just the kids.
Right. Exactly. So circling back, you're now on your way to New York City.
Yeah, crazy. So we thought we were all that and made a stop. I'm from Chicago. That's where we're from. And then I probably mentioned that, but it was kind of interesting that the guy that I was with said, we're going there. We can stay with my cousins. Don't worry. And I said, well, great. Let's make a stop in Chicago, get some food, rest a night, and then, boom, we could probably do it in the 15 hours. So let's just go. He says, okay. So we get there. And I don't know what happened, but everyone knew I was coming for some reason. And so my whole family, like get 200 Italians out. It's like a big party. And we ended up staying like 2 weeks and we had the best time and they treated us. It was just really a great time. So we thought, this is it. This has to be our destiny. How do we go from LA um, and the weirdness that it started from there to uh, getting to Chicago, which wasn't even a stop, and we're having everything paid for. Somehow we're making money. He and I would do the John and Paul thing, right? And,
Right.
and people would give us like $100. We'd just be sitting out there
Wow.
playing Beatles songs, like, oh, this is so cool, or whatever other songs that we kind of knew at the day in the car.
Sure.
So we thought it was really cool, but when we got to New York, it was like his relatives were like, can't stay here. I mean, we actually slept on the front porch the first night we were there in Brooklyn.
Wow.
We're like, what? So we ended up getting dink jobs being runners at Wall Street in the
Okay. Sure.
and we
Stock
lived in this
exchange.
huge loft with another band. So when we were working at so the stock market closes or the running starts closing in New York anyway around noon. So you're
Right.
there about 7 o'clock getting ready for that 8 o'clock kickoff, and then for about 4 or 5 hours you are just insane. And we lived near I'm off of Bleecker near NYU. So it was kind of a cool scene and situation. But that band would rehearse when we were working, and then they had day jobs. Well, they had like bartending, and I think one guy was a hairdresser dude or massage guy. So they were calling their own hours, and we would rehearse during the day, and then we both go gig at night. So we thought this was really cool. Um, and it went nowhere. Like in 3 months, I knew it was going so bad south, and there wasn't enough money, and we still had the one car between us, and it was just becoming bad. So I just left. I stopped back in Chicago, worked for my cousin for about 5 days, made about $1,000, painting and laying brick and just whatever I had to do for construction to get back home to LA. But I had all these songs. I got my gear. That's what I was carrying. If you can believe it, I'm carrying my guitar case, and I didn't even take the speaker cabinet anymore. I left it with a friend in New Jersey. I just took the Super Beetle head and was on my way on a bus. And the first stop was Cleveland. I'm like, and I got taken for $100 in a pool game. I was winning, and then I knew he sharked me after that. But there was that kind of stuff. So I was really determined not to fail at it, but boy, was I not a happy camper.
Oh yeah.
And you're thinking, this isn't cool. I mean, it is cool, but it's not. And I didn't know
Right.
exactly what to do. So I thought about going back to college because I just didn't ever really do that. High school was great. When we were like by 78, 79, we were pretty good. So I thought we had a shot. But then I was at the Troubadour one night, and because this guy that's working for my father says, "Hey, you got to come see a band I'm managing. They're like you. They're totally Beatles. They know every chord like you. It's unbelievable. You'll love them." And I get there, and that's the first time I met Robbie Rist. Um, we were there, and I knew him from his TV part, but I didn't know him yet. Even though he ends up going to the high school 2 miles from me down the street.
Yeah,
Um,
and what a coincidence that Robbie Rist, who was
yeah,
someone I interviewed a little while back,
yeah, I know. It's good.
and that's like, whoa, what a
It's a
small
small,
world.
it's not only a small world, it's a very small town, and out here for
Right.
sure. So uh, we're sitting there and I'm listening to them. They're fantastic. And they played Hard Day's Night, but they played the real opening chord and then there's one little break they do. So yeah, right. It's a great opening, but there's a chord right after the end. And when I've yet to know you, I find the things that you do will make me feel. But all right, there's a different chord that I watched them play, and I went. So I went up to the guitar player, and I'm like, and he was a lead singer. I'm like, wow. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm here with Scott. He's like, oh, our manager? I'm like, yeah, yeah, he works for my dad. Oh, you're the kid. Yeah, come on over.
The
And I
kid,
sit down, and the band's the Knack.
the Knack.
And yeah, and Rob made his way into it, because he had a cool little band going. I think it was a solo, or maybe it was in a band, but maybe he was going solo at the time, or it was a Robbie Wrist band. I couldn't remember. But
Right.
they kind of knew of him too from seeing him play in some of the clubs, and I've been playing like Club 88 and stupid little Madame Wong's downtown or over on the west side. And these guys were headlining the Troubadour, and
Right.
Bruce Springsteen was playing with them. I'm like,
Wow.
they're not even signed. And so it was the Knack. And
Right.
that next summer, they were the largest in 1979 was the biggest thing of all time. And
Oh yeah.
that got me back in.
Yeah, I
That
remember. I
that's the band.
remember with a friend of mine driving to check out Western Washington University, where I had been accepted to go my freshman year of college, and my Sharona was in the rotation, and you know, talk about one of the people think of that song, okay, great pop song, but what they don't, what a lot of people don't understand is Rob's not Rob Riss, but Rob Vere, the
Burton?
lead guitarist.
Oh, Burton Avari. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Burton. I'm sorry, Burton and Barry. Um, that his guitar solo on that song is phenomenal.
It's unbelievable.
It's so crafted so beautifully.
Right, but
And
a lot of people never got to hear it because obviously the radio version was cut to be
Right.
top,
Right.
3 minute song.
But that extended solo, I'm like,
No, they all think it's extended. That's just
yeah,
how
I
they
mean,
played it live.
well,
I
yeah.
mean,
Right.
when I watched them that first time and they just kept going and he kept going, I'm like, man. And I thought, yeah, it's kind of a long song, but it's a great jam. Oh my
Oh,
God, this guy
yeah.
flies. And
Oh, yeah.
he was a kid. He was in his 20s doing this. It wasn't like
Yeah. And just shredding.
yeah, he wasn't like
Right.
the star. I mean, he was a star, but he wasn't the star guy. Better as we get older, we play way. If I could play like I played now, then
Right.
I'd have been okay, you know.
Yeah.
But it takes a while. But he was on fire. So that band really did it for me. That was the guys,
And
and
you ended up signing them
yeah, yeah. Years later, I
years
did gigs
later.
with them. I knew that once they got signed and they were going to play, they still had some commitments around. Uh, Town, and I would call the booker at the other joints, FM station, wherever they had stuff, the Starwood, all these little kind of cool clubs that they had to fulfill and play before, because who knew the album was going to do that? They didn't. They thought, Let's
Right.
just hope something happens and we can
Right.
make another record."
Right.
So we
Another
played
great
with them.
song.
I'd open for them. It would be,
Wow.
and then we were playing at Madame Wong's, and we were the opening act for Tommy Two Tone, who now has to open up for the Knack. So that was like,
Well, nice bill to
yeah, it
be
was like
on.
the Stand, Tommy Two Tone, and and that was so it got me excited and being around those guys, and I became really great friends with Prescott, the bass player, and he and I still to today um, are as very tight, and
Right.
he's one of the guys that you need him on your podcast. He's got the stories of a
Well,
lifetime.
set me up, brother. Set me up.
Yep, you got it.
So
So
then you mentioned your band, The Stand. Here
yeah.
you are opening for the Knack and Tommy Two Tone. And then you have some success in The Stand. You had three uh, top 40 hits.
Yeah, we
You
got lucky. Yeah,
toured with, you
but
opened
it
for
took a while to
U2.
get there. It
Yeah.
was
Right.
like
Yeah.
when we first started out, like I said, everyone's like, yeah, whatever. And we got one of those lucky breaks where there was a club called the Central, which is now the Viper Room, but at the
Okay.
time it wasn't anything like what it became. But it was a place where you could go and play. And we became the Wednesday night band. So there was a band every Monday night called Chucky Weiss and the Goddamn Liars, who became kind of halfway famous. The Tuesday night were the Williams brothers, who were Andy Williams' nephews. The
Okay.
Stand was here. And then the guys that became Mr. Mister were on Thursday. And then I
Cool.
can't remember, Friday was a big rotation night, but because there wasn't a really regular Friday, but we would sit in there and play, and guys like Prince and Rick James would walk in and watch us. Like, hey, because we were very Paisley back then, because
Right.
that was the scene when you said like, oh, the Go-Go's and the Bangles and the three
Yeah.
o'clock, or they were Salvation Army then or something. Um, we were all into that cool 60s Paisley kind of thing, but we all had long hair and we were doing kind of weird looking things and doing psychedelic without being psychedelic, like the Bangs or Bangles. They were doing it on Wednesday week, and there was all these really cool girl bands and guy band, and Prince was be sitting in the audience, and he'd call us over and he'd ask us about our clothes, not really about our music. Those and
Just wants to know about
Aardvarks.
the
We go to these
clothes.
play, and then his next album, Around the World in 80 Days, whatever his next album was all Paisley, psychedelic. You know, my guitar player. You seen those tellies, the Paisley telly? In fact,
Yeah.
he got it from Rob, the Paisley,
Wow.
the
What
Rob
a
that
great
telly,
story.
Paisley tell. You remember that pink Paisley telly that they made? It's really kind of a great looking guitar. And
Yeah,
so
I
we
do.
were
Yeah.
really into that for a while. So we didn't really leave our power pop thing, but because I was playing 12 string a lot, I could cross over into a lot of the psychedelic thing. He would play like more Burton stuff with a heavier sound, and I'd be more Doug, but with a 12 string. And then REM started being this thing, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are just like," and we're like, "No." But out of that little club, there was a management company and a guy from A&M that went, "You guys are it." So we got signed, and um, we were up for making a
It's a
record out.
big label back then,
Yeah,
AMN.
yeah, but they didn't really know what to do with us. They did just pick up or made a distribution deal with SIR. You know, what's his name's the Miles Copeland's um, label where they had the police, you know, IRS. What's it called? IRS? Yeah, I think it was IRS. SIR is where we jam. IRS is the label. Okay, sorry.
Some initials of something.
But they did have some of the cool kind of like up and coming power punk poppy bands that were kind of all over LA at the time.
Right.
I said, "Oh, LA was saturated." I came back to it was just knee deep in everything. Everyone was almost the same band. If you weren't a metal glam guys, you know, you
Right.
were Queensryche or Faster Pussycat or the other dude, Guns N' Roses or all the glam, Poison and all those guys. You were
Sure.
us. You were the Plimsolls. You were the Knack. You were the Stand. You were the Records. You were everything that had the in front of it. But we did get signed. We made our first record, and because of that, there was a talk with back there. It was called William Morris, and they wanted something new, and they kind of coined the term alternative.
Okay.
And we were one of those alternative bands that they picked up, and they had the Alarm, and the Alarm was coming to America that thought they would break big. It wasn't happening, and there was another Irish band that was kind of from the same, almost same town, that were, I believe they were on CA. Or no, no, they were on William Morris, but we were the new guys, but we were the locals. So the other guys had just put out a record. The Alarm did too, but I was way more into the Alarm. And then um, I remember in college someone talking about this band said, there's all Christian. Well, except for the bass player, they're all Christians in the band. It's kind of cool. I said, but they're not a Christian band. Like, no, no, they're just Christian, like you guys. You're not a really Christian act, but you guys are Christians in your band. And I know you've played some festivals, big festival things with Amy Grant and DC Talk and Michael Chat. You played some really big festivals, but you guys are pretty much clubs, right? Colleges and clubs. Like, yeah. Well, UCLA is on their practice field at UCLA is having a free concert, and this is the kickoff to what we think is the right package for this pan to break here. I went, okay, and that's the first time we saw U2, and
Wow.
we were opening for them and the Alarm. So we were the 15, 20-minute opener. Then the Alarm
Right.
was the 30-minute opener. And then
Right.
U2 came out. And this is right before Joshua Tree, but after
War album.
and
Sure.
they were big. So they wanted to do a large thing. I think we ended up doing like maybe 17 dates with them on the West Coast when they were going up and down the West Coast here. And then a year and a half later, they were now U2, and then they come back and they package us again, and we got like 40 dates over out of their 100,
Wow.
whatever. Yeah.
And you're playing some pretty big
And but by this
crowds.
time though, I've moved back to Chicago because I want to be centrally located for touring. Um, and the other guys were like, I don't know. And two of the guys went with me. The other guy stayed. Then one guy left, and I picked up two other guys in Chicago. And then one guy that was from Indianapolis, that was in LA, came back home, and he was in a rival band here. And then he became my bass player, and then we were tight and did the second record together. So, and that was that record was the one that kind of put us up on the big time charts, and
What was the name of that album?
it was called "In 3 Days." And
In 3 days.
there were two songs off of that. There was our song called "Free Love," that I kind of took the riff of the Knack, dun, 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 something of that nature, and
Right.
we did a cover of the well, it was a Nick Lowe song called "Peace, Love, and Understanding." And everyone knows that the Costello had the big hit with it, but this is 10 years later. This is way after the fact of those guys having that hit, and that put us in Easyville because covers or familiar songs from a new band that does it pretty okay and not ripping off Elvis Costello or any other version,
Right.
it works. And so there's a station out here called K Rock, and we got in big time rotation with two songs, and Rodney helped, which I'm decent friends with Rodney. He was one of the kind of instigators here in LA of his Rodney Bingenheimer show, if you ever heard of him.
Yeah. Cool name.
Yeah. Right. The cool thing about Rodney was because we always would go in there and I always do so Davey, how you doing? He's like, don't bring that up, man. Because he was the stand-in for Davy Jones. He tried to get on the Monkees.
Ah.
But there's a episode of the Monkees called The Prince and the Pauper. Like, there's two Davy Jones, and sometimes he's talking to himself or he's looking. And the stand-in or the back of the head was Rodney. He was a total clone of same height, same build, same of everything of Davy Jones.
Right.
He didn't look
Wow.
like him at all. But from the back he did, and he
Yeah.
had long hair
Had
and
the straight haircut.
yeah, the bowl and the
Yeah.
Beatles, you know. So the
Yeah.
Rodney helped us. Rodney helped a lot. And that's why everyone knows the Go-Go's or the Bangles or Blondie, because he would bring
Wow.
them on their show. So we were thought, okay, we're not, I mean, we're doing the right steps. We're not over, but again, keeping a band together because it's all about the
Uh,
job. You know, everyone loves to be in it first just for the music and what you're doing. I mean, to record, because when you make demos, you're paying for them. The guy says,
sure.
you know, it's not like we're getting spec deals. A lot, you know, those
Right.
guys are like, maybe Rick Springfield got spec, but we're not getting any. We're paying for our demos.
Right.
So it was never about the money initially, and then it all became about the money. You know,
Sure.
how
And
much
then
money?
it's work.
Yeah,
And then it's
right. And
like,
then, so the dates that we went on that tour, the last time we were with you two, we were on the Zoetrope tour, and we got our last stop was in St. Louis. We're like, okay, so I live in Chicago, but two of you guys now live back in LA. They're like, yeah, how are we getting home? I said, aren't you just flying back? What about the tickets? Oh, we cashed our other half already, man. We needed to live. I'm like, what? You know, so we had to pick up little club dates on the way back. And, you know, there's enough clubs in St. Louis and Chicago to make something, but um, it was like that was it. And that puts a strain on a relationship and a marriage and with kids. And then they got them. And then everyone hates each other. So, you know, I was getting tired because I was the producer, the writer, the singer, the booking. You know, I was like keeping in touch with the whole, and it
right.
took a lot. The band took a lot out of me, but it was a very fun time. Wouldn't change it, wouldn't trade it out for anything. But where I went after that was where I really wanted to be because I was getting more excited on the other side of the glass. I loved being at the board. I loved hearing what was we were creating. I love helping the creator create. They've got a great bunch of tools to do a great looking photo or painting. But they're like, I want a tree and a stream, and you know, I got the bird, a little apple maybe fall, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are all over the place.
Right.
You don't even know the intricacy of how a stream really works. You've got to kind of do, so when you kind of round those people in and you help them do that, and then they kind of take it from there, and you sit back and you're like, I told you, I could tell that you were about to sing that verse that way before you did it. So I recorded it yesterday and you just did it today. You know why? Because you were going where we were going. And that's when I know that when I was working with people in the early days, that it's not so much the talent of knowing how to get it to tape and making it sound like everyone wants. It's what's coming off that tape, um, that magic that is impossible to describe. You can't purchase it. It only happened for that 1 second. They could have played that song 10 times already at a gig, just check it out and see if there's a good response. But it was never like that when they recorded it until they recorded it, right? And then that's for life. That's that version.
Yeah, that's great. It made me think of kind of me as a therapist, helping people bring out and guide them to the answers that they need to evolve and get out of where they're at and bring out their own beautiful harmonies and life and force energy. And the same thing, it's as you said, as being a producer, you're helping them take their natural gifts and mold it into something that without you there, they probably wouldn't have gotten to.
Right, right. Because I'm a musician too. We're all crazy. You're crazy. I mean, we're all. It's not a very, you know,
Just levels
simple,
of crazy.
sustained world. It has the way. It just has the two highs and the two lows. There's not a lot of
Right.
middle ground, you know. And when you're doing middle ground, that's the grunt work. And you don't think it, but probably, as you know from your profession, that. And you're probably not even working with musicians. You're working with guys that were
No, I
like,
work actually. I
okay,
work with a ton of musicians.
okay,
I could
great.
have
Well,
an
because they need it
all-star
the most. I
band
know.
of some of the people I've worked with, but I
I'm sure
love working with
bankers have
kids.
their own problems and
Yeah, no,
guys hate their
it's
jobs, but
well,
when
being a therapist in LA, I never know who's going to come to the door, but I always like working with creative people, and that's why I like talking to people that are creative and have insight and knowledge and understanding. So, I'm always about me learning and evolving, and I try to learn something from every person I meet, and just become, what we say is enter into a higher state of ignorance.
Yeah,
Because the
exactly.
more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's
I
really important to know
I've
that.
always loved that. Yeah.
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 So 2009, you
2009.
start the
Okay. Oh, well,
model
okay.
music group.
Well, so like, yeah, I think we got out of the, so I'm out of touring, but um, in that time, in 1992, my father, in a weird deal, gets a recording studio with a
Yeah.
property that was put up in a deal with Alan Toussaint. Um, and and the studio was called Sea Saint. There were two
Oh,
guys
yeah,
that owned
Cecil.
it. Marshall Sehorn. Marshall Sehorn had in the 50s a couple of great artists like Wilbert Harrison, who did Kansas City. He also did B.J. Thomas and stuff. And then the other half of the Saint, the Toussaint, was Alan Toussaint. So it was Marshall C. Horn and Alan Toussaint. It was C. Saint was their studio. They got in business with my father. They couldn't they didn't have the money to do a deal. My father did. He said, "What do you got in collateral?" He's like, "We'll give you the cash." He's like, "Yeah, you'll give me the cash. But what do you got in collateral?" And I said, "Well, we got this property here in New Orleans, not as expensive as yours, but there's a nice house on it. There's also a couple of apartments above a storefront, and then the old house is our studio, the Sea Saint studio." He was like, "Well, how much do you think that's worth?" And they say X, and he's like, "Okay, you got 3, 4 years. What is that? 70, less than 72 months. You can pay me back. No problem." 5 years later, they hadn't paid him back. He got the pink slip, and that started me in the studio. And he got that in 92, and I started going out to New Orleans in about 95. And in the, yeah, because at the end of the year, I did in LA, a new thing had happened. The rockabilly swing scene had reemerged from the prior, Brian Setzer days, and all the polecats and the stray cats and any cats kind of band. Now it was kind of our turn, and our turn was, and I got back into playing music. So I wasn't going to play power pop and punk. I was going to play swing rockabilly, and I got into a band. We called ourselves Kid Royale and the Lucky Stiffs, and we played every Tuesday night at the Derby, and every Wednesday night was, I think I can't remember the original guys that played there. Anyway, it became like a really cool scene out here. And Robbie really got into it as well. And so we were a very tight community. And this band, Royal Crown Review, was the Wednesday night, and then Thursday night was Russell Scott. So it was a really like intimate, again, in your own scene, everyone knows each other movement. And by the time I found these guys up in I saw them in Santa Barbara, but they're from Ventura, called Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Helped them. They got going great. They became huge. But once they played the Super Bowl halftime, that whole scene died. It all became Calvin Kleiners. Everyone had to try
Sure.
a martini in a cigar lounge, and it just ruined the scene.
Right.
So because of that, though, I had done a lot of stuff with Pat Boone, who I did albums with Al Martino, Joey Heatherton, um,
That's
Jack
interesting.
Jones, James
My
Deere.
dad knew Pat Boone,
Yeah.
and Pat Boone gave my dad, and I think I have it, a little leather notebook with his initials on it, and Pat Boone. I still have it somewhere.
Was it a Bible?
That wasn't a Bible. It was just like a leather case with a notepad in it.
That's kind of cool.
My father had been in. He was a radio DJ and been an MC for stuff, and had interviewed a lot of famous people during his work as a DJ and things like
Yeah, a
that.
lot of those guys. We had one of the guys in my high school, the son that I knew, Corey Eubanks, his dad was Bob Eubanks.
Yeah.
And we'd always go over to the house, and he had a boxing ring in his house, and we'd kind of do the stuff, but we always watch those outtakes of the Newlywed Game. But he said, "Yeah, but I thought you guys are Beatle guys, right?" I said, "Yeah." "And you don't know my dad?" I'm like, "What?" And they pull out all these photos because Bob Eubanks was the DJ here at the popular KHJ, whatever the biggest radio station was in LA. They were putting on the Hollywood Bowl shows in 64, 65 for the Beatles, and he was the MC.
Wow.
So, and I still see Mr. Eubanks around in Westlake area here, at
Sure.
restaurants or stuff. And I say hi, and he's like, "Hey," and I say, "So you doing the next Beatle one?" We always just
Yeah.
talk about that. But he those it was always something that always comes back to that one band for me with certain
Mm.
people and certain stuff, right? And because I was getting into the whole big swing thing, Al Martino said, if it wasn't for me and Frank, there'd be no Beatles on Capitol. Like the stories that they would start to tell you. There was always something kind of related,
Right.
right? So I uh, I really wanted to make something of that, and I didn't. I did a lot of the local guys down there recording, but uh, and then I was doing some. Costello was doing something in the studio, but a kid came by, and I was doing another thing with all my guitars and amps, all the Rickenbacker Gretches and Vox amps and old they're not called Marshalls, they're called Parks, which was his wife's name, Jim Marshall's wife's name. So the guy was like, "This is a cool little guitar collection. Who's this? Is this the studios?" I'm like, "No, these are mine." And he's like, "Well, do you care if I use some of there? Because I know I'm booking time." And I'm like, "Yeah." It was Lenny Kravitz. He was
Wow.
doing, he was ended up doing some of the tracks for the American Woman album. And so, I
Wow.
mean, it's kind of a cool thing. And, he's been a Beatle fanatic. And so everyone sees a Rickenbacker or a Vox or a
Yeah.
Gretsch or a Vox by itself. They
Yeah.
always equate you
Big.
with, yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's fine. But that had been happening. My father did that in 92. So that had been happening in the mid to late 90s. And by the time I got to 2000, that's when I started Smile in 95, but in 2000, that's when it jumped. That's when the big money came. That's when the big distribution deal came. I got funded tremendously. That's when I went, the first band I signed was the Knack.
Right.
Went out and they were on a comeback. They wouldn't play with the drummer anymore, or the drummer wouldn't play with them. Doug and him, they probably made amends, but they weren't going to be in a band together. Bruce and Doug, the lead singer, and so it was Burton, it was Prescott, and then it was Doug, the three of the four original members. And we did this really great record. They got a comeback going on, and then Doug got sick, and so
Yeah.
wasn't going to. There wasn't going to be any more after that album. Um, but then I did. I had signed the Wonderments, and everyone, if you know the Wonderments, I found them the way everyone else found them. They were a band, but they were doing this thing down on Highland at this little club. They were playing almost verbatim Pet Sounds. They could
Ah,
pull off
Beach
Pet
Boys.
Sound. It was
Wow.
insane. And
The band
someone
of
said,
harmonies, man.
Brian, you got to go. And I think it was Van Dyke Park said, you got to go and check this band out. They're doing your album to a T. He's like, well, I never finished. I never finished Smile. He's like, that's why I called my label Smile. It was because of the album that was the greatest thing that never got done. Not the Smiley Smile thing they did. He originally called it
Right.
Smile, the continuation of Pet Sounds. So um, Brian went down and saw him. I said, you're the band. And so they finished Pet Sounds finally with them. They did an album with Brian. They went and toured with Brian. And the drag was that we just got him on we got him on the Craig Kilborn show. We just got the Wonderments on primetime night TV.
Right.
And they went and said, good this is to actually go be playing with a star like Brian and doing all the money's great and the whole thing. Yeah, we'll come back and finish. We can help. We'll make another record. And they never did. And it was over. So that was it.
Yeah.
I also signed Robbie's band, the Andersons, killer pop band, power pop band. Another. Anyway, there were like Carla Olson from the Textones. Um, she was she was on their Hutch Premium. Stu. He was in one of the best. So Stu's this really fun, brilliant, clever, good sized black dude that just you wouldn't think had the voice of love. You'd think of him just gruff and being a door guy.
Right.
And he had a great band called the Negro Problem.
On
And
your
there's a
label,
killer
right?
story behind that. But anyway, he was doing stuff. There was Chris Carter was managing them. Chris Carter was the bass player for Dramarama. We all knew each other. He was managing the Wondermans, Stu, and the Negro Problem. And so it all became very, again, LA incestuous. And I had about
Wow.
12 um, artists. We had about 15 records out, but I was also doing, because DVD was starting to hit, music DVD. We did Blondie. We did one with the Knack. We did Frampton. We did Moody Blues. We did Nancy Sinatra, the Cheese String Incident, Marilyn Manson, because their labels didn't care to have this, like another live record, or they're just, we have the originals. Go ahead. And so
Right.
we would put out that stuff. We would fund it and put it out. Image Entertainment, and Smile was the label for it. And so it was a really eye-opening way. But that's where I met Irving Azoffs, and all the top other managers that I wanted to do the Tom Slogan, the guys that had REO or Springfield, and all these guys, Christopher Craw, and so I became involved with that scene. And then we're getting close to the 2009 moment, where, because about 2005, the guy that owned the company I was with took all the money and went to Mexico.
Oh,
This
wow.
is the guy that invented Laserdisc, by the way. So he had bang.
Wow.
I don't know what he's running from, but it all fell apart, and not due to me, just due to the circumstances,
Sure.
But it was weird when you get wiped out, or someone says, you know, how they say, "Oh yeah, my accountant took all the money and I never saw anything," and that guy's broke, and they're all looking for
Yeah.
the accountant, and he's hiding in
A
Switzerland or something.
common story.
But you don't think that's going to happen to you, and it did.
Yeah.
So I had to start over again. Um, so right at the tail end, I had been working with John Waite from the Babies,
Sure.
and he, I had to tell him, by the way, the guy that I had the deal with took the money and went to Mexico. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "But I'm in negotiations with Universal. They got a cool little label there called Fontana, and it's kind of their independent uh, side of their big Universal family. And I think I can sell them with you, but I need another band to do it." And so I was trying to partner up with someone else that I knew that might have some, and he didn't have the other recognition gains. Like, funny enough, he had Al Jardine record, he had um, Mickey Dolenz record, and then he had Arianthi, the girl guitarist now she's big, but at the time she was just,
And she played with Michael Jackson.
yeah, yeah. But she
Yeah.
was just, so he was working with her. And I knew the girls from the Bangles, and I knew that from the studio that I had been helping and working with, in the cello one, um, they had a producer that I knew, Tom Scott, and he said, "I'm doing the new Bengal thing. You want to come up and listen?" And I loved it. And the bass player from Robbie's band, the Andersons, the only real name that had an Anderson in the name, was playing bass for the Bengals.
Ah,
And so I was like, they got me in. And so again, very incestuous. Always, the person who knows the person, or have crossed paths many of year and have history with. So then I went back to Fontana and I said, um, I got the Bengals and I got John Waite. And they're like, "How much do you need?" I said, "Great, I'm
a
in. Okay, let's do it."
lot.
Um, and that's how we got to the 2009 deal. But those records came out in 2010. But it took, a minute to put the deal together and to get everybody on tour, and set all that up so that when we did, so the previous stuff, I learned how to set up records, get it ready for the touring, get it ready for the radio. How much do we need to grease this guy, park that dude there? They always say, "Oh, you're just, you're helping for the fund of what." I'm like, "Dude, you're a DJ, you're a radio guy. I know where the money's going. I know where you're doing with it, but how many spins am I getting? What am I getting for my
Right.
meal?" And people didn't like that I was just to the point. Like, they wanted you to play the game and go
Right.
limo with the, and then we could talk
Right.
privately.
Pay to play. Pay
Always.
with that.
So I always looked at each record and I thought, well, I know how much the Bengal record costs. I know how much money I just put in marketing and promo and radio. Oh my God, I'm making that back on ship. Let's do it. So even before all the orders had come in from the retail, and the distributor was telling me what the number was going to be. We recouped. So now I'm all in cherry. Same thing happened with John Waite. His record, we did, got the dough, made it happen, put it together, and then I knew from his prior, though he hadn't put out a record for a while, all the guys that wanted him, all the places that wanted him back for live, all the radio stations that he'd stop, all the in-store things he would do, the towns that he was going to, it all
Right.
worked out. It was great. The manager was fantastic. We had this tight relationship. The day of the release, I get John Waite on Mark and Brian, who were two very big at the time.
I was a
Remember
big fan of Mark and Brian.
that?
Met
Okay.
them many times.
So I got the morning of the release, and while they're on air and we're listening to it, I get a call from the manager. I'm like, "Hey, this is great. Good. I'm so happy that we did this and that we got we got Mark and Brian to push it." He's like, "Yeah, well, I was just calling to let you know we're no longer managing John, and all those dates are not available anymore." So,
Oh my
um,
God.
I'm like, "No, man." He's like, "Yeah, I can't really talk to you about it right now. I can talk to you maybe in a week or two and let you know what happened, but that's what's going on now." I'm like, "And John knows this?" "Yeah, John did this." I said, "What?"
Oh
"He's on the
no.
air."
Oh
What a,
no.
he's like, "Yeah, the dates that we all have with him are not happening." And that just killed me. So now I'm getting the rude awakening of being an independent record label guy. And by the way, if you want to be a producer in this town, own a label because that's how you get your records. You can make
Yeah.
your own records and put them out. But
Right.
trying to be within the Don Was, Rick Rubin, Tim Scott, all those guys' world, nah.
No.
I just do it on my own. Anyway, that was the blowout. And the reason it was called Model Records was the business model. It was a different business model label that I had approached Fontana with, and they said, "Wow, so not a lot of risk, and you're going to guarantee?" I'm like, "Well, I can't guarantee sales." "No, but you can guarantee ship, and we'll recoup." I'm like, "Yeah, we know that they're going to, ship 50." So,
That's awesome. Well,
right.
you know, trials and
It's
tribulations.
unbelievable.
I can't wait. Who's going to play you in the movie?
Yeah, and I'm like, that's when I always would say, "See, that's why I like being on the other side of the glass.
Right.
I
Right.
don't need all this headache." So,
So then comes along 2015. Is it Pacific Studios?
yeah, Pacifique, yeah.
Pacific.
So, so remember I said, my dad got this studio in it,
Right.
and he was wanting to sell it for a while, because it was in New Orleans, and we live out here, and he's just too much. And he's becoming an older gentleman, and he owns a great catalog, this song, 10,000 song catalog. Like every time you hear Sugar Sugar, that's cha-ching for us. Or
Cha-ching.
YMCA or Willie Nelson,
Yeah. Cha-ching.
you know, or La Bamba, like Richie Valens stuff.
Sure.
A lot of and
A lot of
new
stuff.
records, but 10,000 songs is a lot to own. And so he was just working his catalog, and he didn't really, you know, see the need for the studio. I said, "Wait, before you sell it, give me a chance." That's when I went in and started doing some other records. Well, little before 15, uh, they had this threat of a hurricane coming through, and they're calling it Katrina.
Yeah.
And so
Oh
they
no.
evacuate.
Oh no.
And they
Another
put my dad
blowout.
in
A
Memphis.
real
My dad was in New
blowout's
Orleans at the
coming.
time, so he goes up to Memphis. Katrina comes. Katrina goes. It ruined, the studio was just north of the quarter. So some of the quarter got hit bad, but most of downtown got plummeled. Like if you remember seeing the
Yeah.
Superdome,
Oh
it was
yeah.
ripped. I mean, the
Oh
roof was
yeah.
coming apart, right? And then
Sure.
everyone from there was going into the Superdome. So they said, "Oh, where you're at, just north of the quarter, you're not that bad. Come on back. It's open." That was at 1 in the morning. They're almost home at 4 or 5, and they're like, "You can't come in." They're like, "What? They just told us to come back." The levee broke.
Oh
What?
no. Right.
That is all underwater.
Ah.
My dad had a deal to sell that thing, and he couldn't sell it now.
Oh my
All the
God.
masters were in there, the gear,
Oh.
the stuff. And on top of that, he gets something. Yeah, he had
Oh.
before he
Oh.
has a heart attack, he
Oh.
says, "I feel funny. My pinched nerve I have." I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm gonna go check it out. 4 days later, he's having quadruple bypass surgery
Wow. Well,
from
good thing you went and got to a
all
doctor.
that stress right before he had a heart attack. So that was good, but bad. So I had to go to New Orleans. I checked it out. You could see where the watermarks were on the door.
Whoa.
And the way it was set up was you could step down into the building, and then the studio was set in there. So there was, unfortunately, the door was not at street level, but the house and ground weren't, and the basement even further, and all that water flooded and came in and ruined it. And so that it was gone. And the house and the apartments and the I mean, the grocery front, all of it is gone. So the whole inheritance is gone now. Because my dad was like, don't worry, this is yours. You can do with the studio what you want when it's your time.
Oh.
That's all gone. So for that long of time, I wanted to find and buy a studio. And I got a friend of mine, Ted Greenberg, who I knew from I was saving another studio because I thought that's the one I was going to buy. I met Ted there. He and I hit it off great. Ted won a couple of like 3 Grammys for Standing in the Shadows, which was the Motown documentary. And he wanted a studio. And this place that I found had 2 rooms. I said, well, why don't we do that? And he said, yeah, let's do it. And we bought it. And that was in 2015. And we bought it from these three Armenian brothers. But the people that had been in that studio always came back. It was Christina Aguilera. It was Destiny's Child, now Beyonce. It was the 50 Cents. It was Justin Bieber. It was all those type of stuff. And to me, all that music is whatever. That's not what I do. But boy, was it paying the bills, you know? So I inherited a lot of those things. And the first record I did was a Beyonce record called Lemonade. I got the plaques on the walls, and we were up for 9, 10 Grammys that year. And we thought, wow, it's our first year. We just hit it out of the park. And we're at the
Wow.
Grammys, and she's up for all these nominations. Record of the year, song of the year, producer, album of the year, blah, blah, blah. She wins one.
Right.
Like, what? Even Adele from the stage was like, I don't know what happened here, and I don't understand,
Right.
but that girl sitting right there, and we're not here. If she's not, why aren't you up here with this? I don't think my
Right.
record's the record. I think your record is,
Right.
she's saying this on the live broadcast
Sure.
after she wins.
And
And
Beyonce finally wins her first album of the year with Cowboy Carter this
yeah,
year.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We thought it was that one. We were
Yeah.
like, man, we win this one.
Right.
Everyone wants to come to our place to
Right.
record.
Right.
Well, we got maybe a quarter of what we thought. We thought we
Okay.
would get somebody because by then Christina Aguilera wasn't really doing music much more. Bieber's moved on and found his own place. 50 Cent having a sometimes the studio was set up in a way where there was a big door between. It was 2 lots built into one big place, but the middle of the building was still cemented and brick, so you could have 2 studios run at the same time and it would not interfere with each other. You couldn't hear the other side, but there was a door between them, and they locked it. And I was the guy with the key, but you could hear sometimes the the artists saying stuff about each other through the door. My office was upstairs, and I'm like, I'm not coming down and getting between this,
All right. You're by the
And
air vent,
I had I brought in Sheila E. I brought Billy Gibbons in. I brought the babies in, Ambrosia, Rick Springfield. I was doing my side of the thing.
Right.
Um, and then one day, I was sitting in the back. It was a big lot, but we had an enclosed garage gate. You parked in the parking lot, but we locked, a gate. And I opened the gate to pull my car out to leave, and like these 5 hoods just come walking up to me, led by a guy that looks like a Civil War reject, POW guy with
Right.
the shaved head and the
Right.
ZZ Top thing and the tats. And I don't know what made me do, but I got out of the car ready to rumble. I'm like, hello, yo, yeah, we're looking for the owner. And I said, what do you need the owner for? And I got really upset. I was like being like, whoa, whoa, calm down, sir. We're just looking for the owner. We wanted to talk. Ends up, it's the minions of Kanye, who has a place down 5 blocks from me, and he's
Right.
looking to expand would I be interested in selling? And so I called Ted, and we sat down with them, and they wrote down a number, and showed us the paper. And I said, "Can you give me a minute?" And I just looked at Ted and I said, "We'll never make this money. I mean,
Right.
studio might over time. You and I will never make this money. This is
Right.
like God money." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, let's do it." So we ended up selling. And yeah, so
Wow.
Kanye moved in. Not 1 month and a half later, COVID hits.
Oh, crap.
And that building would have
So,
been worth
okay,
what,
so
500 bucks?
some wins, some loses there.
Yep. So there you go.
You dodged some bullets here or
Right.
there.
I got John Waite
Yeah,
firing his
that's
manager one day, and
So tell me about your newest project, Under the Influence.
under the influence. Yeah, it's something that I started back in 2003, 4. Was an idea I had, and the idea came to me because I know I mentioned this earlier to you about Norm's rare guitars. So Norm, remember I said to you, I want a Rickenbacker, a 66 Rickenbacker with the toaster pickups, and I want it black, and and I have a 12 string, I want a 6, and I really got to have that old clinkety great song and style, and I want the crushed pearl in it, and I got to have that round stem. Well, Norm just happened to have one in his shop.
Oh, wow.
I've been really great friends with Norm and his family. And I mean, I was the softball kid that say, we won 3 championships because I was on their team, and Norm said, I said, I'm getting married. He's like, really? I said, yeah. I said, okay, I think I have something for you. And he goes over off the wall, takes it, hands me the guitar that I've always said I wanted and said, this is your wedding present. And I might have sent you a photo with me playing it.
Oh,
Um, Back in the
cool.
day. But so I got it. So I was always around Norm, and his original shop was this dink place, tight as could be, greatest guitars. But his clientele was George Harris, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, Mike
Yeah,
Campbell.
right.
It's guitar gods coming in, Eddie Van Halen, just the guys that want really great classic vintage guitars. And this is right on the cusp before it becomes a monster thing where other shops start opening up. Guitars R Us. Dan leaves Norm to open up his own. So vintage guitars at that point were nothing. I was getting Rickenbackers, like I told you, for 200 bucks. In fact,
Right.
I paid 500 bucks for a guitar that looks like the one behind me. And I was just playing it, and they were looking for a case. And Petty walked in, and he said, "Oh, that looks great." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, here." And he tried it, and he's like, "Oh, plays great. I love it." And we plugged it in. I said, "You got to hear it. It's just amazing." And he said, "Well, really? How much you pay for it?" And I said, it was cheap, but they're looking for the case for it right now, and I already bought it. So I'm just waiting. So I don't mean to crowd you if you want to sit here and play the amps or anything." He's like, "No, no, it's all right, man. Don't worry. It's great."
Tom, yeah.
They found the case. I'm in the back with a guy named Nick, who's a repair guy. We're putting the guitar in, and Nora comes in and says, "Hey, you know the guitar that you brought in, and you gave me that guitar and 500 bucks for this? What if I gave you your guitar back and I gave you $1,000 back?" I said, "For this? On the same thing?" He's like, "Yeah, I got another Rick coming in." I said, "Okay. I guess. I mean, yeah." So I took my Gretsch back. I took $1,000 because cash was great. And I knew another Rickenbacker come in. And he takes it, walks right up to Tom and says, "Here you go." Tom paid like 5 grand for it or something.
Of course.
And he took out a thou to give me right there cash and said, "You want?" And that's that's the guitar that's on Full Moon Fever, his
Oh
album.
my God. How cool is
So
that?
it kind of looks like the one behind me. So I would see Tom a lot in the thing. And I went to Norm and I said, "You're really great friends with him. I know him because Ron Blair, his original bass player, played bass with me in my band, The Stand, for 2 years with Phil Seymour on drums. So I had like this mega popular killer playing band. And they all kind of remember me from that time, but they didn't know now I had been Music Man, that I produced a lot of these records, found a couple people or had these records out. Um, and I said, "But I really want to do this show." And I called it Under the Influence. And he's like, "Well, what's that about?" And I said, "Well, the show is about your influence was influenced by How did that come about? I mean,
Right.
I know your history, I know your story, but I don't know the true thing. And so I remember back in the day when you had a camera, a video camera. I mean, a camera, but a video card. Yeah, it was a camera, but you could open up and it would give you like a video card, give you 5 minutes, and you're filming it. You're filming a video, and you could take
Right.
that card and put it in this play, and then it would play in your DVD or
Right. Right.
VHS. Okay, so I had one of those, and I told Norm, hey, listen, next time Tom comes in, I want to ask him something. Are you cool with that? He said, well, what's it about? And I told him what it was about. He said, oh, I think he'd be fine with that. So Tom comes in. I said, I got the camera. Let me just set it up real quick. I had a little tripod. Tom sits down, takes actually a 12-string acoustic. I think it was a Gibson. No, it was a Mitchell. Anyway, he takes this guitar, and I just said, so what made you wake up that day going, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I know what I am. Because something triggered you, like it all does for every one of us. What was that? He's like, yeah, it was like a bird's tune. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like probably tambourine, or turn, 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 or feel a whole lot better. And he's like, no, no, it was this one. And he jumps into Bells of Rimney, which I hadn't heard. And I'm like, Bells of Rimney? He's like, yeah, you got to check it out. Okay. So he was telling me that that's it. And I said, it wasn't the Beatles? He's like, oh yeah, I'm them too, but that wasn't my thing. But that 12, I don't know, that when I heard the Birds, when I heard McGuinn, I sound like him. He ended up producing one of McGuinn's solo records, and he total Bird fanatic. Everything about it, the look, the sound. I mean, listen to all the Tom Petty stuff. It's like Birdsville. So
Yeah.
I went, okay, I got it. So they were a huge influence. Like, yeah, I knew right then that's what I was gonna do. I said, what else? Well, what I found was with McGuinn, he was in the Rambling Jack and Dylan and the other guys. And then, of course, everyone knows Tom's friends with all those guys and toured with them and and it's cool to find that your influence or your thing that made you become you. Um, and he doesn't know he's going to be a star. He just knows that this is what I'm going to do. Sorry, Dad.
Right.
I'm not going to be the 5 to 9 guy and
Yeah.
9 to 5 guy.
And it helps to be an incredible songwriter because Tom had so many number one hits up there with in the world of the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, he doesn't know that's him yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are the stories behind Under the Influence. What were you? Like we've been talking to Mickey Dolenz, and he was telling us a story of how this one song that he used to play with his little school band really that was the first thing he ever bought as a 45, and that's why he wanted to be a musician, even though he was an actor kid at the time. Same thing with Smokey Robinson. So we have these artists that we're dealing with: Peter Frampton, Jackson Brown, everyone. So it's listening to their story, and then they play that song
Yeah.
the way that they know it and played it and loved it. And so it's a show that's also a live documentary. And I had been involved with a really great friend of mine, Denny Tedesco, and we did, he was the director of, but I did the music on The Wrecking Crew. I don't know if you saw this movie, but it was
Oh
about
yeah, great movie.
the session. Yeah, the session
Yeah.
players, right?
Yeah.
And
They
his
did
father,
all the Motown and backing charts and
I mean, these
yeah.
guys here did it from Elvis to Sinatra to the Birds Association, the Beatles, the Mama
Yeah.
Papas. I mean, everybody. They were the Monkees. They were doing the background, and they weren't getting any recognition as players, but they were just session guys. So that was that movie. That's what that was about. But his father, Tommy Tedesco, is one of the greatest session guitarists of all.
I had the honor of, so when I was at Musicians Institute back in the 80s, Tommy Tedesco was speaking. And I
He's classic.
knew from past experience that he was going to pick 3 guys to take to the studio with him. So I got there early and I sat myself front row center. And when he said, okay, I got 3 guys I'm going to take, my hand went up, boom, you're in.
Wow.
And I went with 2 other students with Tommy to the studio as they were doing the soundtrack for Roots 2. And it was the coolest day, man. It was so
He,
cool. I felt like, oh my God,
he was making, yeah, so I knew Mr. Tedesco pretty well. And
Wow.
he, when you know him as, oh, he's just the dad of your buddy. I
Right.
didn't know that. I didn't know there's no Bonanza, Batman, Hawaii Five-O without Tommy Tedesco guitar
Oh,
and all
yeah.
the other stuff he played. But all
Yeah.
that. or all the Magnum or Charlie Angels or all, he played on all those kind of
Yeah,
things.
this incredible
So
studio.
he had the story, but
Yeah.
he was dying and he couldn't
Uh,
write it. And he wouldn't have enough time to finish writing it. So he got
uh,
his son, Denny, do a round table with Plaz Johnson, he's the sax player, played on many things, but you know him because he did theme of Pink Panther.
right.
Harold Kay, the bass player, that played from Pet Sounds to Glenn
Right.
Campbell to everyone else, and then Hal Blaine, the drummer on all those
And I
songs.
think there's another Chris Tedesco. Chris.
There's Damon, Denny. You talking the children?
I'm talking one of the relatives. I met him at a restaurant. And he knew
Oh
he was
man,
part of that clan. I don't know. So a long time ago, but
but that movie really got me involved with. We really got to find the influences on
yeah,
our people that are not going to be here anymore. Because
yeah,
that whole movie, that the record was all about his father, and then the stories of all those guys that worked with him, that were doing it, that were his peers, that they became all those records. It's just insane, from Bridge Over
right.
Troubled Water all the way down to Boney Maroney or Hanky Panky, all those just novelty songs to songs that shaped and formed what we are now in the industry. So
Right.
he did volume two of it called The Immediate Family. And these guys were the 70s dudes. These were the Lee Sklar, uh, you know, uh, Karchmore, they call themselves the Immediate Family, Waddy Wachtel. Uh, they were all the session guys for the 70s players, Jackson Brown, um, Carole King, James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt. They were the session guys on all those things. So he did another movie of that, and those guys and their stories, who they played with, of those very iconic people, even their hardcore fans don't know the true story of what made that earth move under my feet by Carole King, right? Like when she
Yeah,
tells you that story, but she hasn't really ever told that story. She doesn't even tell you why. She has, she's got these things, and these guys were there with the stories. And so that's what this show's about. So I got Denny. I said, no one's ever done a live documentary on, say, Tom Jones. Live documentary. He's here. He's telling you his story. He's playing the
right.
songs live. Um, we signed a deal just a few months back, a production deal to go in and do it starting this year. I'm thinking maybe March, April, start doing our first shows. That'll be shown, and obviously I'll give you a link to wherever it's ready.
Yeah,
And
please do.
yeah, when we're ready to do that. But that's what I've been working on. I would say the last 2 years, hardcore. It takes forever to get something going. But remember, I told you, like in 2003 when I sat with Tom Petty. So this is
Yeah,
a 1 year
exactly.
journey, you know?
Oh yeah. It
And
sometimes it takes time to,
but this is what
simmer,
happens. So I did that thing with Tom. He told me the thing. I had this little 3, 4 minute tape. I take it to a guy, and he had heard about me and I heard about him, but I didn't know what he actually did until I sat in his office because he was a manager. But he had done uh, behind VH1, behind the bands reunited, behind the scene. Um, Tommy Lee goes to college, Henry Rollins. He managed all these people, all these bands.
right?
And he said, yeah, VH1 wants this show that I just showed. I said, I only gave you like a 3, 4 minute clip of Tom Petty talking. Like, no, we got it. But they want to put their own people in, blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay.
Namaste.
And
Excellent.
well, I got this other place. And so they fly, the Independent Film Channel says, Elvis Costello, funny enough, again, here we go. I know him from my studio in New Orleans, and Diana Krall and him record there. Um, he's got this show. He's not renewing. We need a new fill-in. We'd love to do yours. They fly us on December 23rd out to
Oh.
New York. Meet them. We go upstairs, and they took us to lunch. It was all great. And they sat down, and the girl that was doing it kind of went, it gave me this look. And I was curious, like, did we order the wrong? We didn't order anything expensive, did we? No, no. So I just got word at the 11th hour here that now Elvis wants to renew his contract. He's picking up his option. He didn't want to. He was done with it and everything. But as you can see, you're right here on the top of the pile of our show, of what we're looking to do. but contractually I can't now. We're stopped
I,
unless he says something. I said, well, when was the deadline? Oh, December 31st. I'm like, oh, it's 2 days
yeah.
before Christmas.
Well,
So
one of my sayings that I like to say and tell people I work with is there's no great without hard. And if you want to be great, the universe will supply the hard. And the hard is what makes anything worthwhile. If it was just easy to do, people don't find a lot of value in it. But when you have to claw and struggle and do it, that's to me, that's the beauty of creativity, which I think is one of the incredible gifts that we get as spiritual beings immersed in a human experience. The fact that we now have bodies and we have ears and we can hear music and we can see beautiful things. And I think creativity is one of the greatest just joys of being a human being ever. But there's that dual-edged sword, there's the highs, it's the lows. And to be a creative means that I'm going to create and I'm going to throw my stuff out there into the world. And some people will go, man, that's really great. And other people say, this sucks. And you have to be able to go,
more
you
on
have to
that
be able
side
to
than
go,
the other.
whatever, man, I got to keep creating because
90% of them are critics that have never
yeah.
even lifted a
And,
guitar.
and my thing is just put it out there, just do it. Just get it out there.
That's
Don't
I
be a
believe you because
perfectionist.
I've been cranking at this thing. So that happened, and then it got shelved in 2008. There was a little movement again. I thought we had it, nothing. Right before I was buying the studio in
Right.
2015, I went, I could film it here. I could do it on my own. But then that studio took over my life, and I couldn't even
Right.
get to the project I wanted to. And then
There's a
COVID
great
came,
book.
right? And
There's a
then
great
COVID
book
shut
waiting for
down.
you to write. There's a book in there that needs to be written that I would love to read. And for people watching this today, you got a great insight into just the life and career of someone growing up in what I would describe as a very unique time that I feel so sorry for Generation Z and other people that didn't have this type of opportunity, that are just glued to smartphones and social media and really don't create and the struggle, the struggle is how you build esteem and how you get confidence and then how you build something. And so we really had opportunities and we really struggled. And I love every part of it, man.
Right. I
Tony,
was telling.
as we end today, what would you say to young artists, young musicians, young creative people out there that are trying to get their music heard?
Well, young artists today are a little different because they have another platform that we never had one.
Well, yeah, they have the internet. They can record and
But
boom, it's out
they
there.
don't
But
even really
there's
need to know how to play with like, oh, there's GarageBand and they give you grooves or like
yeah,
Slick Drums will give you like the best,
yeah, or
sounding Phil
auto
Collins thing you
tuners
could
for
ever
your
need.
voice and all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
so
you hit
it's
a
really
button.
easy in that way. But how does someone stand out?
Right. I I started losing interest, even though I listen to like kind of independent radio or KCRW,
Yeah,
some or the Northridge guys. They're the people that really want to do it and put the time, effort, and educate them on how to be. Not like if it's their passion thing, you can see
it's
you can
got to
tell
be
the difference.
passion.
You
Yeah,
can just tell the difference. There's a person that loves that. That is all that.
yeah,
That's he just believes his DNA is that.
yeah. They're
Where
not in it to try and make money.
the other one's like, how many hits can I get? How many views do I got? How
Yeah,
fast can I make it happen? Maybe I don't really sing well, but so what? I listen to every rap song in the world. There's not really singing going on, so I don't really have to
no,
be that, like a voice. But
no.
if they want to do it, it's to me, I always say the same thing. Focus. Just you can't be, you know, just myopic and blind, with the horse blinders on. You have to be focused and take everything around you because that's how you become. Tom Petty would have never become Tom Petty without that.
Yeah,
He
the
stayed
grind.
in what his dad said and made it and drilled into him and did that. And he didn't buck that system, which if you ask almost every musician, there's some type of parent person that did this to them or someone in their family
Right.
or the girlfriend that said you won't amount to anything.
Oh yeah.
Was his
Right,
name Vince Cavallo, the guy that, ended up playing for the Eagles and, at 30 years
right.
old. I mean, your dream can come true, but you got to stay focused. And
Yeah,
it's that passion thing. That's what wakes me up every day, still
yeah,
at this age, going, man, because I'm working on this show now. This is it.
yeah. I
I
know. I
get
love it,
these
man.
guys. Right. And
I love
that's what it
life.
is.
So for my LA friends, when you see Tony out there jamming, recognize who's in front of you. Thank him. Go up and say thank you for not only playing great music tonight, but for having such an influence on music and what I like that I didn't even know. Um, Now, in terms of your gigging around LA, is there a website or how do we know when
Uh,
to go see you?
yeah.
Or you just pick up a gig
Yeah,
and
no,
I
not
don't
really.
care?
All of us came from kind of well-known bands, so we don't think about that or do that because this is just fun for us. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's the
Oh, I love
passion.
playing out.
You know it. You do it. The people, especially in our age group, do it because
Yeah.
it ain't for the money, that's for sure. But it, but it is fun to have that connection still.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
even in my community when I do it, I see friends out. I'll see them at the store, or at the gym, or on the road, or at the movie theater.
Yeah.
They always go, "Oh, you're that guy. Oh, we loved you." And that's all the things it's really for. That's what you play for. It's just
Sure.
you made someone smile or happy or feel good. And if you can
Well,
make
Yeah.
any human do it on the planet, you're not in a bad place.
Well, Tony, this has been a gift. Thank you for the gift of spending some time with me today. And I wish you nothing but success in all your future endeavors.
I appreciate that.
All
I
right,
had a
my
great
friend.
time, Rod. Thank you for letting me kind of
Thank you,
start
man.
remembering some
No,
things I probably wouldn't have even thought of. And so,
I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, thank you for the gift.
yeah, I'm sure you'll edit it down to just the right amount of time.
No, I'm not touching anything in here, baby.
It's okay. You should. All
I
right.
don't do that. I don't shorten it. I'm not into that. I'll add stuff to it, but I just what it is what it is, and we don't mess with the groove, man.
Okay. I appreciate that. That's nice.
All right. Well,
I'm sure I
thanks
will see
again.
you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.